Yesterday, Sayadaw explained that people who do not practice Vipassana meditation that can develop the mind and the knowledge by noting, by observing bodily objects, bodily actions, by observing Vedana, sensations and feelings, and Chitta, thoughts and imagination, and also general activity. People who lack Satipatthana practice, who do not practice Satipatthana practice, have wrong view because they do not practice, they do not observe the objects at the moment of their arising. Failing to observe these objects at the moment of their arising, their mind becomes perverted. There will be perversion of perception, perversion of consciousness, and perversion of view. And they believe that things are permanent, even though things are impermanent. And they take things as creatures, human, deva, man, woman, and then they take things as good and permanent. They also believe in atta, and they think things are beautiful and pleasant. Their views are deeply seated that these wrong views cannot be removed, or their wrong views are difficult to be removed because they are clinging onto their wrong views, and their wrong views are deeply seated. And they believe in atta rather than knowing that there are only nama-rupa phenomena, mentality and materiality. They think it as atta. And they believe in two kinds of atta. The first one is Parama atta, believing in Creator, Mahabrahma, and Jiva atta, individual soul. They believe that each and every being, each and every creature has atta, individual soul, in themselves. So they are believing in Parama-atta, Supreme Soul or Universal Soul, who is the Creator, controlling other creatures as well as other things. And they believe in Jiva-atta. They believe that Jiva-atta is in each and every being. And they also believe that even in inanimate things such as trees have atta. And they believe that Jiva-atta has its own controlling power. And they think that the Jiva-atta has the control of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, and so on. So they believe that this Jiva-atta is making every movement, and they say they know. They believe that a creature that has a big size will have a big size atta, and they believe that small creatures have small atta. So according to their wrong view, they think that a small creature like an ant will have small atta, and an elephant will have big atta. In this way, they believe that atta is proportionate to the size of the creature. And they believe that even though the body perishes, but atta will not perish. and they think that it is nature. They think atta is permanent. There is no end to the atta. Even if a being dies, the atta will shift onto the next body. In this way, their wrong view is very firm that it cannot be removed. And they do everything in order to make atta happy and well. And they think that they have to do things according to Parama-atta, and by having faith and confidence on Parama-atta, this Parama-atta will save them. So they think that what they should do is to believe in this Parama-atta, so that Parama-atta will save them, give them whatever they need. Thinking and believing that Parama-atta, Creator, gives things to them, they do not make any effort because they depend a lot on the Creator. Not exerting effort, they lose their ability. They fail to practice Vipassana meditation to develop the mind and the knowledge. Because they believe that Creator will give happiness and well-being, they fail to make effort, and thus they do not have the ability that they should have. Buddha guides the way to beings, so that beings will perform good deeds and refrain bad deeds. But the people who believe in Creator, because they depend solely on the Creator, they fail to refrain from bad deeds and they fail to perform good deeds. Depending on the Creator, thinking that believing on the Creator will save them, they have more courage to perform bad deeds and they fail to perform good deeds. So their ability will deteriorate, or their ability will not arise at all. So based on their wrong views, they do not make effort and their life is totally wasted. The body, most Mahasana, the majority of the people are holding high esteem of Rupa, the materiality, and they think highly of materiality, that the materiality is permanent, good, and that the materiality arises due to according to one's own wishes. And they take the materiality as beautiful and good looking. In order to see that the materiality are impermanent suffering and non-self, not beautiful, loathsome, it is not easy. Saraji gives an example. If there are things that cannot be seen by naked eye, one needs to take a look by use of spectacles, or if one wants to see very small things in the distance, they need to use binoculars. And to look at very small, minute things, one needs to take a look with microscope. So, if a person's eyes are weak they need to make use of spectacles, and if the spectacles are not good enough, one needs to have spectacles that have higher diopters. So in this way, people need the help of spectacles, binoculars or microscope to look at things that cannot see by naked eye. In the same way, in order to observe the materiality, to know the true nature of impermanent suffering and non-self, people need to have mental strength, mental power added to their mind. So with ordinary mind, one cannot observe the characteristic of impermanent suffering and non-self. So one needs to have mental power, mental strength, in order to see the true nature of impermanent suffering and non-self. In order to have mental power, to have mental strength, one needs to aim the noting mind towards the presently arising object. One's noting mind should rub onto the object. One needs to have his or her mind on the object of meditation. In order not to accept the defilements, one should have effort. One has to exert effort in order to push the noting mind towards the object, so that the noting mind reaches the object of meditation. In this way, yogi needs to have mental power, mental strength in his or her mind, so that the mind will be calm, collected, unified, and that the noting mind falls calm and collected on the object. So in this way, yogi needs to apply these factors, aiming, directing the noting mind towards the object, having the noting mind sustained on the object of meditation, and to exert effort so that the noting mind reaches the object of meditation. And also, the person should be a true yogi. A true yogi is the person who exerts initial effort, who exerts step-up effort stage by stage in order to overcome laziness, and also exerting effort until one reaches one's goal. So if the person is a true yogi, by exerting these three stages of effort, one can sharpen one's weapon. One can sharpen one's mental weapon by practicing diligently. Yogis should aim and focus their mind towards the object, and also the noting mind should rub onto the object so that the noting is effective. So these jhanic factors of vitakka and vichara are essential. One should cultivate vitakka and vichara. In order not to accept kilesa defilements, in order to repel defilements, one needs to exert atapaviriya, ardent effort. One should develop sati, mindfulness, so that the mind will be guarded, protected away from the defilements. And also, one should cultivate sati, mindfulness. One needs to unify the mind so that the mind will not be distracted, it will not be scattered. One needs to develop concentration so that the mind will be collected and unified. When the noting mind falls calm and collected on the object, one will know the true nature, one will develop knowledge stage by stage, and one's mind will be matured. In order to develop these mental states, one needs to practice systematically. One needs to practice in order to develop, to cultivate, to increase these mental states. If one fails to develop these mental states, one cannot overwhelm the nirvana hindrances that have been suppressing the person throughout one's life. One will be constantly tormented by nirvana hindrances if one fails to develop these mental states. Especially in countries which are economically developed, people tend to have tension, stress, and depression. And people, they are selfish. They do not see the faults of wrongdoing, and they are indulging in the defilements. They do not know that these defilements are frightening, and thus they are entertaining akusala vira, enmity of unwholesomeness, kilesa vira, enmity of defilement. So these enmities are within oneself. They are also called internal enemies. So the internal enemy of these defilements, when they are at large, one cannot save one's life. There will be a big problem, and the person will not have happiness or well-being. In order to repel such internal enmity, which are the defilements, one needs to have powerful weapons. If one does not look for powerful weapons, or even though one has weapons, if one does not make use of one's weapon, one will be overwhelmed by these kilesa defilements. That's why one needs to have the weapon of viriya, sati, samadhi, and jnana. One needs to have the weapon of effort, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. And also, one needs to have weapons of vitakka and vichara, the jhanic factors of vitakka and vichara. And to put it in satipatthana way, one needs to have powerful weapons of viriya, sati, samadhi, and panya. One needs powerful weapons of effort, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. One needs to be well equipped with these powerful weapons of viriya, sati, samadhi, and panya, so that one will discern the truth, one will know the true nature of impermanent suffering and non-self. One needs to practice in order to see the truth of impermanent and suffering and non-self. That's why it is said, Kaye Kayanupatti Viharati, and in order to define it, one needs to be Adati Sampajano Satima. One needs to have ardent effort, one needs to have clear comprehension, and one needs to have mindfulness and concentration. There are two kinds of enemy, the internal enemy and external enemy. And the internal enemy is more frightening. The external enemy, such as enemy in the form of person and being, such kind of enemy can be encountered only once in a while. When fighting among people, among groups, or among countries, they need to make use of weapons, and they need tactics, they need knowledge, and also courage to fight among people, among groups, and among countries. And when one has victory over their enemy, they will be grudged by the defeated, that they will have the grudge that they will take revenge when they become powerful again. And when one loses, also one will suffer a lot. So it will not be good. Even if one has victory, one will have multiple enemies. People will be holding grudge against the person who wins. Even if one loses also, one will suffer. So that's why it is very important to have victory properly. When one is encountering internal enemy, one needs to have good weapons in order to have victory on the internal enemy. Because the internal enemy, which are defilements, they have been torturing the person throughout one's life, throughout the whole samsara. That's why one needs to be equipped with powerful weapons in order to drive out the internal enemy, which are the defilements, so that one will have victory on these defilements. One should have faith and confidence on oneself. One needs to have strong will in order to drive out these internal enemy, which are the defilements. The more one fights by making use of these powerful weapons, the more powerful the weapons will become. But the weapons that the people are using, if they use the weapon over and over again, the weapon becomes worn out. But in the case of fighting kilesa defilements, by making use of powerful weapons of viriya, sati, and samadhi, the more we make use of these powerful weapons of viriya, sati, samadhi, the more powerful these weapons will become. So this is the difference between the weapons of viriya, sati, samadhi and the material weapons. So the weapons of viriya, sati, samadhi were given by the Buddha. One needs to be equipped with these weapons given by the Buddha, and one should sharpen the weapon by himself, by herself, by practicing. In this way, when the yogi is equipped with powerful weapon of viriya, sati, samadhi, and if one sharpens by practicing, one will have victory on these internal enemies which have been torturing the person throughout one's life. By making use of these weapons given by the Buddha, one is in combat with kilesa defilements, and one is said to be a martyr who is fighting, who is in combat with kilesa defilements by making use of these weapons. In order to sharpen one's weapon so that the weapon will become more and more powerful, one cannot be lenient on the enemy. One should be relentless of these enemies. one should not have compassion on the enemies of defilement. So one should be cruel on these enemies and on these enmity of these defilements. Saraji gives an example of fire. Fire burns on fuel regardless of whether the fuel is precious, valuable or not. Fire burns all kinds of fuel, whether the fuel is valuable or whether the fuel is worthless. So fire has no leniency. Fire is not lenient on this fuel. It is cruel towards the fuel. In the same way, yogis should not be compassionate on the defilements which are internal enmity. And these defilements are torturing the person throughout one's life, throughout one's samsara. Yogi should be cruel towards the defilements. People who lack metta, loving kindness, they will have hatred kind of dosa. If one has hatred kind of dosa, one will not have patience or forgiveness when associating with others. And if one is hurt, one will also take revenge, and one will hurt others in revenge, cruelly. By lack of compassion, there will be cruelty. If there is lack of metta, loving kindness, there will be hatred kind of dosa. If there is lack of compassion, there will be cruelty kind of dosa. And thus, one will be torturing, killing others. If one indulges in the internal enmity of dosa, then one will be committing these transgressions. That's why one should have victory on these defilements such as dosa. By having victory on dosa, one will be uplifted, and also others will not get hurt. If one indulges in dosa, one will commit transgression, one will not be a genuine human, and also others will get hurt, and others will suffer both physically and mentally. In this way, if one indulges in dosa, both sides will be ruined. So one should have victory on these defilements such as dosa. If one has victory on dosa, one will not be committing transgression. If one indulges in extreme form of dosa, one will be morally degraded. By overcoming extreme form of dosa, one will be morally uplifted, and also others will not get hurt or harmed. By protecting others from being hurt with compassion, one also automatically controls oneself. That's why it is important to have victory on the internal enmity, which are the defilements. If one has victory on these defilements, one will be free from the danger of self-criticism. One will feel satisfied that one overcomes defilements one will feel satisfied that the person is good. In this way, one will be free from danger of self-criticism. If one has victory on these defilements, one will be free from danger of self-criticism, being blamed by others, or being punished by law, or being reborn in bad existences. In this way, if one can overcome internal enmity, one will be free from danger, and one will not meet harm. If one is mindful by noting the presently arising object with aim and effort, the person will not have any wish to kill or torment others. In this way, one will have victory. One will have victory on oneself, and also one will have victory on these defilements. When one develops knowledge, one can have victory on these defilements, and one can have guarantee in life. So the defilements that have been tormenting the person throughout one's life should be overcome by practicing Satipatthana meditation. In order to have victory on these defilements, one should be equipped with the weapon that Buddha had given. In order to sharpen the weapon, one needs to be practicing diligently apart from their sleeping hours, so that the weapons of Viriya Sati Samadhi will become more and more. If one makes use of the weapons that Buddha had given over and over again, these weapons will become more and more powerful. When one effort is strong, there will be more courage to refrain from bad things. There will be more courage to perform good deeds. When there is strong effort, sati, mindfulness, will be developed. When there is mindfulness, the mind is guarded, protected, so that kilesa defilements cannot enter the mind. Having samadhi, concentration, the mind will not be agitated by raga or dosa, and thus the mind will be calm and collected. By developing knowledge, one will discern the truth, and one can remove wrong views. And developing knowledge, one's mind will become matured. Having viriya, sati and samadhi, having effort, mindfulness and concentration, one will have more power to repel the defilements. Having developed knowledge, the mind will be matured, and thus one can withstand worldly conditions. One can withstand ups and downs of life. To make use of these weapons of viriya, sati, samadhi, one should practice diligently. One should be practicing continuously. One can withstand worldly conditions. One can withstand ups and downs of life. To make use of these weapons of viriya, sati, samadhi, one should practice diligently. One should be practicing continuously apart from their sleeping hours. One should be mindful on presently arising objects. One's mind should be guarded, protected with mindfulness, being mindful of presently arising objects. And one should be mindful, one should note these objects with aim and effort. One should practice diligently so that one will have victory on the internal enmity. Having victory on the internal enmity, one will also be free from frightening dangers, and one will not meet harm. What is the problem is, people are more frightened of the external enemy, but they do not mind the internal enmity. So most of the people are spending a lot of time to prevent and to defend the external enemy, so they do not have time to prevent the internal enmity. So they are failing to refrain, failing to prevent, failing to fight and repel the internal enmity. So people are constantly bullied by these defilements, and thus they are suffering. It is more important to repel the internal enmity. And when sending metta, we are saying aham aviro homi, which means that may the beings be free from internal enmity. Being free from internal enmity, one will also be free from danger and harm. So Saraji says it is not enough to smile when you see a person, but it is more important to have metta, loving kindness towards beings wholeheartedly, wanting beings, wishing beings to be free from internal enmity. Being free from internal enmity, it may seem that the person is losing, but instead the person is having victory on these defilements. Having victory on these defilements, the person is the true winner. And this will be all for today. Tomorrow Saraji has to go to Yangon, so the Dhamma talk will be from 4 to 5 tomorrow. Sadhu, sadhu.